Hello everyone, welcome back to Skeledon, Bushcraft and Survival. Thank you very much for joining me. Now recently I had a discussion about fire reflectors and fire shields, mylar blankets, and so on and so forth. And I wanted to make a video today to kind of explain why they're important and how to use them. So let me go ahead and turn the camera around. I'm going to actually show the typical way that you see it being used and why that won't work. And also what you can do to make it work and why it's a necessity to have a fire reflector with you. Now, it doesn't have to be mylar, but I'm using a mylar blanket as the example. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, now this is the typical way that you see it set up. You got the fire reflector on the other side of the fire, and I'm on this side of the fire. Now the idea is it reflects back off of that and it comes back to me. In reality, it doesn't work that way. It does go that way, but that being that far away from me on the other side of the fire is actually more of a windshield, if anything, than a fire reflector. The heat that I'm feeling here doesn't go up or down because of that right there, and that is science. However, if I were to change positions to right here with the fire reflector behind me and the fire in front of me, now it's actually doing something. Is it reflecting the heat? Yes, radiant heat. It is absolutely reflecting the heat, but not like it sounds. Actually, what it's doing is it's blocking the heat from leaving, and so it stays in my area a little bit longer. In colder temperatures than today, and if anybody has been out in unwillingly out in the woods, forced to stay the night in freezing cold temperatures, sub-zero temperatures, they'd be able to tell you that something back behind really doesn't raise the temperature up that much, but it does raise the temperature some. And just a few degrees in that sub-zero temperatures matters. Now I have been out, and I'm telling you, you really want something to back you. Now, this doesn't have to be a mylar blanket. It can be your shelter. But the idea is the heat radiates all the way around. It doesn't just go up, it comes all the way around, and it hits off this right here, and it blocks it just for a little bit, enabling this area to warm up just a few degrees. This could be your shelter. You'd be inside your shelter with the fire near you. And of course, that radiant heat would come in and line the walls of your shelter. That wall of your shelter is a fire reflector. The misunderstanding of fire reflector, it should not actually be called a fire reflector. It really ought to be called a fire absorber or a heat resorber, because a fire shield is a good name for it, because it blocks that heat just for a second. That heat is going around behind me. It's going all the way around me. But if it stops here just for a second, then it's able to raise the heat a little bit more for me. Now, mylar blankets, the terminology being blanket, really shouldn't be called a blanket because you cannot just cover up with it. It absolutely will not keep you warm. You've got to have something in between you and that in order for it to, it's like a wall of your house. The insulation in your wall, it blocks that wind flow. It blocks that heat from going through and holds it inside. That's the only thing that this thing right here is doing. So you put it on with clothes on, and you've got air gap, and that air gap, that which is what your insulation in your house is actually doing, it's just causing an air gap. That allows for heat to bounce back onto you. Now what I use it for is I put it down, and then I put my mattress, my sleeping bag, my bivy bag and a sleeping bag inside of my bivy bag. However, whatever the temperature is determines what I do there. But nevertheless, I like to keep that in between this and me. And that gives that the opportunity to do what it's supposed to do. Heat reflect. That's exactly what it's doing here. Heat reflecting. So whether you line this on the inside of your shelter, or you put it up underneath you when you're laying on top of, like I said, that sleeping pad that I have, and then the sleeping bag, that puts a air gap in between you. Your body heat bounces off of it and it comes back to you. So if the definition of fire reflector means that it has to be on the other side, then it's a waste of time. But the actual meaning of fire reflector is actually what it's doing, and if it's behind you, then it is in fact a fire reflector, and it is important. Like I said, using it to line your shelter, that's another point. If you're not using fire or heat absorbing materials, because wood does not absorb the heat very long. In fact, if you heat up your area and you put the fire out, within seconds a cool breeze comes through, it's not retaining any heat. If the back of your shelter is lined with a cob, which is clay, sand, and water, so that you can pad it up, grass as well, so you pad it up and line it on there, then it actually does absorb the heat. And if the fire goes out, you're actually going to be able to stay warm for a little bit longer. Well, that's a lot of work, and using a Mylar blanket to line the back of your shelter is a real quick way. And in a couple of videos ago, I mentioned about very important to take along a shelter component with you. And I like to use this. And the reason why is because it is really good at reflecting radiant heat. So by using this right here as a shelter, the heat reflects off of it, stays in my area just a little bit longer, and allows for the heat to build just a few degrees. And in sub temperatures, like I was talking about, which I have been in that situation before, a few degrees is life and death. When you have 16 degrees below zero, the fire is kicking out at 90 degrees, you're only feeling about maybe 14 degrees below zero. You're not feeling any of the heat at all. But if you have something that reflects heat, like a Mylar blanket behind you, blocking the wind, very important. You could use a rock as far as that goes. If you find a standing rock and you can sit in front of that, it would serve the same purpose. But that bumps it up a lot warmer, and then you're actually able to feel some of that 90 degrees. I also want to point out that the Mylar blanket that I had behind me, that is the more expensive one. It is the $12 one at Walmart. I would suggest that if anybody was going out to get one, that would be the one to get. These right here, they're only $5, and they have their place, but more than likely this right here is going to be a waste of time. So it's just a couple of dollars more. Might as well get the better type, right? All right, well, that's going to be it for me today. I appreciate you coming along. Thank you very much for that. Also, I want to tell you, next video, I've got an awesome thing set up. I'm going to be doing a giveaway. I'm going to be demonstrating what the product is, how it works, what it does, and then, of course, on top of that, I'm going to be doing a giveaway. So please share the video for that as well, not only for the information, but for the giveaway. And take care. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you like this type of video, please like, share, and subscribe. I have many more coming up in the future. Until then, take care. And remember, nature, it does provide.